The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like it had for the past 15 years, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. Jake Harrison stood on the observation deck of the command center, watching the colony come to life below him. He could see children running to school, farmers heading to the fields, and scientists walking to their labs. This was home now, not just for him, but for 50,000 people who had made this distant planet their world. Jake had been on Kepler 442b since the very beginning, when New Haven was just a small research station with 20 people. Back then, they lived in metal containers and ate food from packages. Now the colony spread across 3 valleys with real houses, parks, schools, and even a small hospital. The transformation amazed him every single day. Dr. Lisa Morgan walked up beside him, carrying her morning coffee and a data pad full of research notes. She looked tired but happy, the way she always did after discovering something new about their planet. Lisa had been studying the strange crystal formations they found in the caves near the colony. These crystals could store energy better than anything humans had ever seen before. "Good morning, Jake," Lisa said, taking a sip of her coffee. "The crystal analysis is almost complete and the results are incredible. We might have found something that could change how humans use energy forever." Jake smiled and nodded. This was typical Lisa, always excited about her research. She had been the lead scientist since day one, and her discoveries had helped make New Haven the successful colony it was today. Her team had figured out how to grow food in the alien soil, how to clean the water, and how to build using local materials. Down in the valley, farmers like Pete Johnson and Mary Williams were checking their crops. The modified corn and wheat grew well in the rich soil of Kepler 442b. The planet had perfect weather, clean air, and no dangerous animals. It was like Earth had been millions of years ago, before pollution and overcrowding. The farming families had built a community that felt like the small towns their grandparents had told them about. Children played in the parks while their parents worked. Schools taught both Earth subjects and new lessons about their planet. Kids learned to identify local plants, understand the weather patterns, and respect the environment that gave them such a good life. Many of them had been born here and knew no other home. The colony had trading relationships with 3 alien species who lived in nearby star systems. The Carolins brought rare metals in exchange for human technology. The Ventari traded medical supplies for human art and music. The Dosari offered protection services, but humans had never needed them, because New Haven was peaceful and isolated. Jake commanded 200 Marines who kept the colony safe, but their job was mostly helping with emergencies and maintaining equipment. Crime was almost zero because everyone knew everyone else and people took care of each other. The biggest problems they faced were equipment failures and occasional accidents, not violence or conflict. The colony had grown beyond what anyone had imagined when they first landed. What started as a simple research mission had become a thriving community. Families had been started, businesses had opened, and traditions had begun. New Haven felt permanent, like it would last forever. Commander Harrison walked through the residential areas during his daily patrol. He knew most people by name, and their children called him Uncle Jake. Mrs. Betty Davis always offered him cookies when he passed her house. Old Frank Miller liked to tell stories about his days as a ship engineer. Young couples like Danny and Carol Roberts were planning their wedding for next month. The medical center run by Dr. Kevin Wright had delivered over 300 babies since the colony started. These children were true citizens of New Haven, born under alien stars but raised with human values. They spoke with accents that mixed Earth, languages with new words they had created for things that only existed on their planet. Lisa finished her morning walk around the research complex where her team of 30 scientists worked on various projects. They studied everything from the planet's geology to its weather patterns. Their discoveries were sent back to Earth and shared with other human colonies. New Haven had become famous throughout human space as an example of successful colonization. The communication center received daily messages from Earth and other colonies. News from home seemed distant and less important than local events like harvest festivals and school graduations. People still felt connected to Earth, but New Haven was their real home now. Trade ships arrived once every few months, bringing supplies and taking away scientific samples and trade goods. The pilots always commented on how peaceful and prosperous the colony looked. They said other colonies struggled with harsh environments or hostile aliens, but New Haven seemed blessed. Jake often wondered if their success would continue. The galaxy was a big place with many different species, and not all of them were as friendly as their trading partners. He had heard reports of conflicts in distant sectors, but those seemed like problems that would never reach their quiet corner of space. The defense systems around New Haven were basic compared to military installations. They had warning sensors and communication equipment, but no heavy weapons or shields. The colony had one patrol ship, the USS Liberty, commanded by Admiral Kate Sullivan. It was enough to handle pirates or accidents, but not designed for real combat. Most colonists never thought about galactic politics or military threats. They were focused on their daily lives, their families, and building their community. The children played games, the adults worked at jobs they enjoyed, and everyone looked forward to community events and celebrations. Evening came with its usual beauty as both moons rose over the mountains. Families gathered for dinner, couples walked hand in hand through the parks, and friends met at the community center to talk and laugh together. It was a perfect life on a perfect world, and everyone believed it would continue just like this forever. Admiral Kate Sullivan was drinking her morning coffee aboard the USS Liberty when the sensors started screaming. She had been patrolling the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system for 3 years, and nothing exciting had ever happened. Pirates avoided this area because there was nothing valuable to steal, and the friendly alien traders always announced themselves before arriving. The sensor readings made no sense at first. 30 large ships had just appeared from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Kate checked the readings twice before calling her crew to battle stations. 30 ships was more than a trade fleet and more than any exploration mission she had ever heard of. Communications, try to contact the incoming fleet, Kate ordered. Find out who they are and what they want. Lieutenant Brian Cox worked frantically at his station, sending standard greeting messages on all frequencies. The incoming ships ignored every attempt at communication. They were moving fast toward the inner system, toward New Haven Colony. Kate felt ice form in her stomach as she studied the ships more carefully. These were not exploration vessels or trade ships. The hulls were dark and angular, built for war, not commerce. Weapon ports were visible along their sides, and energy readings showed they were charging their systems. Send an emergency message to New Haven immediately, Kate commanded. Tell them we have unknown hostile ships approaching. Then send a distress signal to Earth and all nearby colonies. The USS Liberty was a patrol vessel, not a warship. It had light weapons and shields designed to handle pirates or accidents, not a full battle fleet. Kate knew she could not stop 30 enemy ships, but she had to try to protect the colony somehow. Down on New Haven, Jake Harrison received the warning message while he was having breakfast with his staff. The words seemed impossible at first. Hostile ships approaching. Unknown enemy fleet. Prepare for attack. These things did not happen to peaceful colonies like theirs. Jake immediately activated the colony's emergency systems. Warning sirens began wailing across all 3 valleys, telling people to move to the underground shelters. Most colonists had never heard these sirens except during practice drills. Many thought it was another drill until they saw the fear on the faces of the security teams. Dr. Lisa Morgan was in her lab when the alarm started. She quickly began shutting down sensitive experiments and copying research data to portable storage devices. If the colony was really under attack, she had to save 15 years of scientific discoveries. Her hands shook as she worked, barely believing this was really happening. Families across New Haven grabbed emergency supplies and hurried toward the shelter entrances. Parents carried small children, while older kids helped carry bags of food and medicine. The shelters had been built deep underground and stocked with supplies, but everyone had hoped they would never be needed. Pete Johnson and Mary Williams were in their fields when they heard the sirens. They could see other farmers abandoning their equipment and running toward the colony center. Pete grabbed Mary's hand and they ran together, leaving behind the crops they had spent months growing. Above the planet, Kate Sullivan watched the enemy fleet approach. She had moved the USS Liberty between the hostile ships in New Haven, knowing it was probably a suicide mission. Her small crew of 45 people were brave, but they could not fight 30 warships. Still no response to our communications, Lieutenant Cox reported. They are ignoring everything we send them. Kate tried one last time to contact the enemy fleet. Unknown ships, this is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Terran Defense Force. You are approaching a peaceful civilian colony. State your intentions immediately or withdraw from this system. The only answer was weapons fire. Energy beams lanced out from the lead enemy ship, striking the USS Liberty's shields. The small patrol vessel shook under the impact and alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Return fire," Kate ordered, knowing it was hopeless. The Liberty's weapons struck the enemy ship but barely scratched its armor. More enemy ships opened fire and the Liberty's shields failed completely. Kate had time to send one final message to New Haven. "Enemy attack confirmed. Ships are Zephyrian design. Withdraw to deepest shelters immediately. May God help you all." The USS Liberty exploded in a ball of fire, taking Kate Sullivan and her entire crew with it. The 45 brave men and women died trying to protect 50,000 colonists they barely knew. On the surface of New Haven, Jake Harrison watched the explosion through his telescope. The death of the Liberty meant the colony was completely defenseless. His 200 Marines had weapons designed for crowd control and emergency response, not fighting a space fleet. The enemy ships moved into orbit around Kepler 442b. Jake could see them through the telescope, dark and menacing against the stars. Each ship was larger than the entire New Haven colony. Whatever these aliens wanted, they had brought enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. Dr. Kevin Wright was helping families into the medical shelter when the bombardment began. The first energy beam struck the main residential area, vaporizing houses and parks in an instant. The ground shook like an earthquake and the sky lit up with fire. More beams struck across the colony. The school where children had been learning just hours before vanished in a flash of light. The community center where families gathered for celebrations became a smoking crater. The farms where Pete and Mary had worked their whole lives turned into fields of glass. Jake tried to coordinate the defense from his command bunker, but there was nothing to defend with. His Marines were brave, but their small weapons could not reach ships in orbit. All he could do was help people reach the shelters and hope some would survive. Lisa Morgan made it to the research bunker with 300 other people, just as the bombardment intensified. They could hear explosions above them and feel the ground shake with each impact. The reinforced walls held, but everyone knew they were trapped. The attack continued for 6 hours. The Zephyrians methodically destroyed every building, every vehicle, and every sign of human civilization on the planet. They showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. This was not conquest or robbery, it was extermination. When the bombardment finally stopped, the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace as suddenly as they had arrived. They left behind a dead world covered in smoking ruins and radioactive craters. Of the 50,000 people who had called New Haven home, fewer than 400 survived in the deepest underground bunkers. The news reached Earth 12 days after the attack on New Haven. President Robert Hayes was in a cabinet meeting when his aide handed him the emergency message. He read it twice before the words truly sank in. 50,000 civilians dead, an entire colony destroyed, an unprovoked attack by the Zephyrian hegemony. Robert had been president for 6 years and had dealt with many crises, but nothing like this. Human colonies had faced natural disasters, equipment failures, and occasional pirate attacks, but never genocide. Never the complete destruction of an entire world full of families and children. Within an hour, Robert called an emergency session of the Terran Defense Council. Representatives from every human colony and military command gathered in the secure meeting room beneath the Capitol building. The faces around the table showed shock, grief, and growing anger as they reviewed the reports from New Haven. Fleet Admiral Sam Parker had commanded Earth's space forces for 15 years. He was known as a calm and careful leader who preferred diplomacy to warfare. But as he read the survivor reports and watched the video footage from New Haven's final hours, his expression grew cold and hard. "Mr. President," Sam said in a voice that made everyone listen carefully, "this was not an act of war. This was murder. They killed civilians, children, families who never threatened anyone. They destroyed a peaceful colony without warning or provocation. General Nina Brooks commanded Earth's ground forces and had spent her career preparing for conflicts that everyone hoped would never come. She studied the tactical reports from New Haven and felt sick at the complete helplessness of the colonists. They had died without even understanding why they were being attacked. The Zephyrians wanted to send a message, Nina said grimly. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans are weak and defenseless. They picked New Haven because it was peaceful and isolated, thinking no one would risk war over one small colony. Robert looked around the table at the faces of Earth's military leaders. These men and women had spent decades building a defensive force designed to protect human colonies from pirates and accidents. None of them had imagined they would need to fight a war of revenge against an alien empire. "What are our options?" Robert asked quietly. Sam Parker activated a holographic display showing human military assets throughout the galaxy. The numbers looked pathetic compared to the Zephyrian hegemony's 12 star systems and hundreds of warships. Earth had maybe 200 ships scattered across 50 colonies, most of them lightly armed patrol vessels. "Officially, we have barely enough ships to defend our core systems," Sam said. "The Zephyrians probably think we will file a diplomatic protest and ask for compensation. They expect us to accept this massacre because we are too weak to do anything about it." Robert noticed that Sam had said "officially" and wondered what that meant. "What are you not telling me, Admiral?" Sam looked around the room and made a decision that would change human history forever. "Mr. President, there are military projects that even you do not know about. Programs started after the first contact with hostile aliens 20 years ago. We hoped we would never need them, but we prepared anyway." General Brooks nodded and activated another display. This one showed construction facilities hidden in asteroid belts and weapons research laboratories buried on remote moons. The scale of the secret programs shocked even the president. Earth had been building a war machine in secret for 2 decades. "We have 800 ships," Nina said quietly. "Real warships, not patrol vessels. They are hidden in facilities throughout human space, waiting for the day we might need them. We also have weapons the Zephyrians have never seen and cannot defend against." Robert stared at the displays showing massive dreadnoughts and advanced weapon systems. "How is this possible? How did you hide something this big from everyone, including me?" "Because we knew that if people learned about these preparations, they would think we were planning aggressive wars," Sam explained. "We built these weapons hoping we would never use them, but knowing that someday we might face an enemy like the Zephyrians." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Earth was not the peaceful, defenseless world that most of the galaxy believed it to be. Humanity had been quietly preparing for war, while publicly promoting peace and cooperation. "What kind of weapons are we talking about?" Robert asked. Captain Alex Stone had been silent during the meeting, but now he stood and activated a classified file. Alex commanded the Experimental Weapons Division and had spent 10 years developing technologies that pushed the limits of physics. "Antimatter warheads that can crack planets," Alex said calmly. "Quantum tunneling drives that let our ships appear inside enemy formations. Nanite swarms that can dismantle enemy vessels at the molecular level, and kinetic bombardment systems that fire projectiles at near light speed." The description sounded like science fiction, but the test footage Alex showed was very real. Asteroids vanishing in antimatter explosions, ships materializing inside simulated enemy fleets, nanites reducing target drones to basic elements in minutes. Robert realized that Earth's military leaders had been preparing for this day since the first human colony was attacked by pirates 20 years ago. They had learned from every encounter with hostile aliens and built weapons specifically designed to fight enemies who underestimated humanity. "The Zephyrians made a critical mistake," Sam said. "They attacked civilians to show our weakness, but they only revealed their own cruelty. Every human colony will volunteer to fight after seeing what happened to New Haven. We can mobilize the largest fleet in galactic history." Within hours of the meeting, secret orders went out to hidden bases throughout human space. Construction crews began final assembly of weapon systems that had been kept in storage for years. Military personnel reported to ships they had never known existed. The mobilization was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans from every colony volunteered to serve in the fleet being assembled for revenge. Farmers became gunners, teachers became navigators, and shop owners became Marines. The anger and grief over New Haven united humanity like nothing ever had before. Colonel Ryan Mills commanded the ground forces being prepared for planetary assault operations. His troops trained with weapons designed specifically for fighting Zephyrian warriors. Every piece of equipment had been tested and refined based on intelligence gathered over decades of careful observation. Dr. Patricia Lane led the team responsible for psychological warfare operations. Her mission was to ensure that the Zephyrian military understood exactly why they were being destroyed. Every attack would be accompanied by broadcasts explaining that this was punishment for the murder of innocent civilians. The secret shipyards worked around the clock to complete the final ships. The UES Retribution was the largest vessel ever built by humans, a kilometer-long dreadnought with enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. Captain Stone would command this flagship during the coming war. 6 months after the New Haven massacre, Earth's hidden fleet was ready. 800 warships crewed by volunteers seeking justice for their murdered families. The galaxy had watched humanity's colonies develop for decades, thinking they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The human fleet materialized at the edge of Zephyrian space like a nightmare made real. 800 ships appeared simultaneously through quantum tunneling drives, bypassing every sensor and early warning system the aliens possessed. Admiral Sam Parker stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched his enemies scramble to respond to an attack they had never seen coming. War Prime. Kethvar commanded the Zephyrian military from his fortress world of Xanthar Prime. He had ordered the destruction of New Haven to show the galaxy that humans were weak prey, suitable only for conquest or elimination. The reports of a massive human fleet approaching his territory seemed impossible at first. How many ships? Kethvar demanded from his commanders. 800 confirmed contacts, his intelligence officer reported nervously. All of unknown design and configuration. They appeared without using hyperspace lanes or jump gates. Our sensors show energy readings beyond anything in our databases. Kethvar studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The humans had hidden their true strength completely. Intelligence reports had suggested they possessed maybe 200 lightly armed patrol vessels. This fleet was larger than his own and equipped with technology he did not understand, Captain. Alex Stone commanded the UES Retribution and felt a cold satisfaction as he watched Zephyrian patrol ships flee before his advance. The quantum tunneling drives allowed his ships to appear anywhere within a star system instantly, making conventional defensive strategies useless. All ships, begin Operation Retribution, Sam Parker broadcasted to his fleet. Remember what they did to New Haven. Show them what happens when they murder human families. The first engagement took place near the mining world of Kelthera. A Zephyrian fleet of 40 ships moved to intercept the human advance, confident that their superior numbers would carry the day. They had never faced an enemy that could teleport directly into their formation. Human ships materialized inside the Zephyrian fleet, firing antimatter torpedoes at point-blank range. Alien warships that had seemed invincible vanished in brilliant explosions that lit up the entire star system. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian fleet was destroyed without inflicting a single casualty on the human forces. Colonel Ryan Mills led the ground assault on Kelthera after the orbital battle ended. His Marines used weapons designed specifically for fighting Zephyrian warriors. The aliens were larger and stronger than humans, but human technology made physical advantages irrelevant. The liberation of Kelthera revealed the true nature of the Zephyrian hegemony. The mining world was worked by slaves from a dozen different species, including humans captured from isolated colonies over the years. Ryan's forces freed thousands of prisoners who had been worked nearly to death in the alien mines. Broadcast this to every world in the galaxy, Sam ordered as video footage of the slave camps was transmitted throughout space. Show them what the Zephyrians really are. Show them why we fight. The psychological impact was devastating. Species throughout the galaxy that had feared Zephyrian military might suddenly saw them as brutal slavers who preyed on the weak. Support for the human war effort began flowing in from unexpected sources. Dr. Patricia Lane coordinated the information warfare campaign that accompanied each military victory. Every Zephyrian world received broadcasts explaining that their suffering was punishment for the unprovoked massacre of New Haven. The message was simple and repeated constantly. This is what happens to those who murder human civilians. The second major battle occurred at the fortress world of Malthan, where Kethvar had positioned his most elite forces. The Zephyrians had prepared elaborate defenses including orbital platforms, minefields, and hidden weapon emplacements. None of it mattered against enemies who could appear anywhere. Human ships tunneled directly past the defensive lines and began systematic bombardment of military targets. Kinetic projectiles fired at near light speed turned Zephyrian bases into molten craters. Nanite swarms released into the atmosphere dismantled weapons and vehicles, while leaving civilian structures untouched. Captain Stone watched the destruction of Malthan's defenses with grim satisfaction. The Zephyrians had built their military reputation on crushing weaker opponents through overwhelming force. Now they faced an enemy that was stronger, faster, and more advanced than anything they had imagined possible. Sir, we are receiving surrender offers from 3 Zephyrian worlds. his communications officer reported. They are requesting terms and offering to withdraw from all disputed territories. Denied, Sam replied coldly. They showed no mercy to the children of New Haven. They will receive the same mercy they gave to our families. The human advance continued through 7 star systems over 4 months. Each victory demonstrated new weapons and tactics that shocked military observers from across the galaxy. The Altarian Republic, Crystalline Consortium, and Void Hunters sent ships to monitor the conflict and report on human capabilities. What the observers saw changed their understanding of warfare itself. Human ships that could appear anywhere instantly. Weapons that could destroy planets. Nanite clouds that could reduce entire fleets to their component atoms. The peaceful traders and explorers had revealed themselves as the most advanced military force in galactic history. The siege of Dorthak Prime lasted 3 days and became legendary throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians had concentrated their remaining fleet around their most heavily defended world, convinced that sheer numbers would allow them to achieve victory through traditional tactics. The humans responded by surrounding the entire planet with antimatter mines and quantum disruptors. Any ship that tried to leave the system was instantly destroyed. Any ship that tried to enter faced the same fate. The entire Zephyrian fleet was trapped in a cage of human technology. Surrender now and your crews will be allowed to live, Sam broadcasted to the trapped aliens. Continue fighting and you will share the fate of New Haven's children. Some Zephyrian commanders tried to break out through sheer desperation. Their ships were vaporized the moment they approached the human perimeter. Others attempted to hide on the planet's surface, but human sensors could track individual life forms through solid rock. Ryan Mills led the final ground assault on Dorthak Prime with surgical precision. His forces targeted only military installations and personnel, while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. The contrast with Zephyrian tactics at New Haven was broadcast throughout the galaxy. The fall of Dorthak Prime broke the Zephyrian military completely. Surviving commanders began surrendering their ships and bases, rather than face annihilation. The mighty empire that had ruled through fear for centuries crumbled in just 4 months of warfare. War Prime Kethvar retreated to his homeworld with the remnants of his personal fleet, knowing that the end was approaching. The humans had demonstrated that his forces could not fight them, could not escape them, and could not hide from them. All that remained was to face the consequences of ordering the massacre at New Haven. The galaxy watched in amazement as the human fleet approached Zenthar Prime for the final battle. The species that had seemed weak and peaceful had proven themselves to be the most dangerous military force in known space. The age of Zephyrian dominance was ending, and everyone wondered what would replace it. The human fleet surrounded Zenthar Prime like a steel net of justice. War Prime Kethvar stood in his command center watching 800 human warships take positions around his homeworld. His empire was gone, his fleets destroyed, and his military reputation shattered. The beings he had dismissed as weak prey had proven themselves to be apex predators beyond his worst nightmares. Admiral Sam Parker studied the final Zephyrian stronghold through the sensors of the U.S. Retribution. Zenthar Prime was heavily defended with orbital platforms, energy shields, and underground bunkers. The planet held 10 million Zephyrian civilians along with the last remnants of their military forces. Captain Alex Stone prepared his ship for what could be the final battle of the war. His weapons could crack the planet's crust and boil its oceans, but Sam had made it clear that unnecessary destruction would not be tolerated. This war was about justice, not genocide. Open a channel to the planetary surface, Sam ordered. It is time to end this. The face of War Prime Kethvar appeared on the main screen, showing a proud warrior reduced to desperate circumstances. His elaborate armor was scorched and damaged. His troops were exhausted, and his eyes held the hollow look of complete defeat. "I am Admiral Sam Parker of the Terran Defense Force," Sam said calmly. "You ordered the unprovoked massacre of 50,000 human civilians at New Haven Colony. Your forces murdered children, families, and peaceful researchers who had never threatened your empire. Today you will answer for those crimes." Kethvar tried to maintain his dignity even in defeat. "You have won this war, human. What are your terms?" Sam's expression remained cold as he delivered the conditions that would reshape galactic politics forever. Complete and unconditional surrender of all Zephyrian military forces, reparations for the rebuilding of New Haven Colony, liberation of all slave populations in your territory. and the establishment of a permanent galactic peace treaty with humanity as the primary enforcement authority. The terms were harsh, but not genocidal. The watching galaxy expected the humans to glass Xanthar Prime in revenge for New Haven, but Sam offered a chance for survival in exchange for total submission. Kethvar realized he had no choice. His remaining ships could not fight the human fleet. His defensive systems had proven useless against their technology, and his people would die if he continued the war. "I accept your terms," he said quietly. The surrender ceremony took place aboard the UES Retribution with representatives from every major galactic power watching. Kethvar knelt before Admiral Parker and formally surrendered his empire to human authority. The image was broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing the most feared military leader of his generation, humbled by the species he had tried to exterminate. Colonel Ryan Mills supervised the liberation of slave camps throughout former Zephyrian territory. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were freed from brutal captivity. Many of them were humans captured from isolated colonies over the years, including some survivors from attacks that had been dismissed as pirate raids. The freed slaves told stories of Zephyrian cruelty that shocked even hardened military personnel. Families separated for labor assignments, medical experiments on prisoners, executions for minor infractions. The galaxy began to understand that the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire was not conquest but liberation. Dr. Patricia Lane worked with newly freed populations to document Zephyrian war crimes for the historical record. The evidence was overwhelming and painted a picture of systematic brutality spanning decades. The human war of revenge was transformed into a campaign of justice in the eyes of galactic public opinion. President Robert Hayes arrived at Xanthar Prime aboard a diplomatic vessel to oversee the transition to the new galactic order. He had aged years during the 4 months of warfare, carrying the weight of decisions that had reshaped civilization itself. "We did not seek this war," Robert said in his address to the galaxy. "We did not want to become a military power, but when our families were murdered, we had no choice but to respond. Today we offer a choice to every species in the galaxy: peace under law, or the fate of those who prey upon the innocent." Ambassador Helen Carter negotiated the Treaty of Terra with representatives from every major galactic power. The document established humanity as the primary peacekeeping force in the galaxy, with authority to intervene against aggression and protect civilian populations. The other species agreed to the treaty quickly after seeing what had happened to the Zephyrians. The Altarian Republic offered to provide logistic support for human peacekeeping operations. The Crystalline Consortium agreed to share advanced technology in exchange for protection guarantees. Even the mysterious Void Hunters sent envoys to negotiate peaceful relations. Director Carl Washington established the Galactic Peace Enforcement Division with headquarters on Earth and regional offices throughout human space. The organization would monitor potential conflicts and respond to threats against civilian populations anywhere in the galaxy. The reconstruction of New Haven began immediately with resources provided by former Zephyrian worlds as part of their reparations. The new colony was built as a memorial to those who had died, with their names inscribed on a monument that could be seen from orbit. Dr. Lisa Morgan returned to New Haven as the chief science officer for the reconstruction project. She stood in the same valley where she had once studied crystal formations, now cleared of radiation and ready for new growth. The research complex would be rebuilt bigger and better than before. Jake Harrison was promoted to planetary governor of New Haven and oversaw the return of the surviving colonists. The 400 people who had lived through the attack in underground bunkers were joined by volunteers from across human space who wanted to help rebuild the murdered colony. Children played again in the parks of New Haven, but now they played under the protection of the most powerful military force in galactic history. The orbital defense platforms could destroy entire fleets, and everyone in the galaxy knew that attacking human civilians would bring swift and overwhelming retaliation. The Zephyrian homeworld was transformed from a military dictatorship into a peaceful member of the galactic community. Former warriors learned new trades as farmers, teachers, and artists. The culture of conquest was replaced by a focus on rebuilding and making amends for past crimes. Years passed and the galaxy settled into a new era of unprecedented peace. Trade flourished between species that had once viewed each other as potential enemies. Scientific cooperation led to advances that benefited everyone. Cultural exchanges created understanding between civilizations that had never communicated before new human colonies were established. With full knowledge that they were protected by the Terran fleet, families could pursue their dreams of life among the stars without fear of unprovoked attacks. Children learned about the New Haven massacre as a reminder that freedom and peace required constant vigilance. The galaxy had learned that humanity possessed two faces, one of compassion and cooperation for those who chose peace, and another of terrible vengeance for those who threatened human families. The choice between those faces belonged to each species and each individual leader. In the end, Earth's revenge had indeed shocked the galaxy, not just through its display of overwhelming military might, but through its demonstration that true strength included the wisdom to show mercy, even when possessing the power to destroy completely. The children of New Haven were gone, but their sacrifice had purchased a lasting peace for countless generations yet to come.